Welcome to Executives at the Edge, a podcast brought to you by MEF. I'm your host, Pascal Menezes. Join me as we explore thought-provoking perspectives from the leaders and changemakers who are propelling enterprise digital transformation forward.
Welcome to this special Power Play episode of MEF's Executives at the Edge podcast. This recap highlights the transformative power of technology, including satellite networks, cloud, and AI, and their impact on various industries. Experts Declan Ganley, Arun Dev, and MEF-CECP explore how businesses can leverage technology innovation to drive change and stay competitive.
We're calling it the OuterNET, and that is a distinct and separate, much more secure and faster network of communications that is truly global, and that can connect any one part of the surface of the planet to any other part of the surface of the planet without having to touch the internet. To do that, what we have designed and innovated for is the creation of a low Earth orbit space-based constellation that is made up of 24 orbital planes in polar orbits at 1,050 kilometers altitude, and we'll be putting 600 routers into low Earth orbit space. They're satellites. Each one of them will have 4 lasers, creating a mesh. Think of it like sort of a fishing net cast around the whole planet, including the poles. So from pole to pole, right across enveloping the whole planet. And that network, without having to touch any subsea cables or ground relay stations or anything else, will be able to join point to point in a way that is faster because you're not touching the internet, you're not going through subsea cables. So anything over 4,000 kilometers is going to be faster than anything that exists in the world right now. And because there are far fewer attack points or vectors to get onto that network, it will be inherently more secure, even before you get into doing things like encryption and the normal stuff. The architecture of this network itself physically makes it inherently more secure. So that is the OuterNET. We think it's going to be a huge step forward. We think it's going to be the biggest thing, frankly, since the internet.
Well, that's really impressive. So Declan, there is a rapidly increasing landscape of convergence between terrestrial and satellite networks.
Mm-hmm.
So what does this future look like for the expansion of enterprise? What does the connectivity look like, and what role does Rivada play in this area?
Yeah, well, we're calling this, what we aim to provide is network as a service, and the kind of customers that we are looking to serve are not normal consumers, as you will. We are focused on enterprises and governments. We will have the network that we've designed and are deploying is MEF compliant. So, and understanding in the fact that we come from the world of terrestrial wireless, we really understood that point that you make about the need for interoperability from the get-go. The MEF standards cover also APIs used in interactions between service providers and their customers. So that lowers the friction of those interactions as well. The vision is that any current or future user of terrestrial carrier Ethernet services, they'll be able to incorporate our services into their solution. So any enterprise-grade connectivity provider would be able to extend their coverage to this entire world, to the whole globe, using the OuterNET, using Rivada's OuterNET.
How are these new technologies different from all these other legacies and plan networks? Let me put it that way.
So the technology is different because it doesn't touch the internet, because it's inherently more secure, and for the reasons I've explained. Now, we're also making sure that satellite delivery mode, which is a relative novelty to carrier Ethernet ecosystems, is properly addressed in the standards, in the MEF standards. So we're engaging MEF certified vendors to get elements of our system from them. So our customers and our partners will be able to use standard APIs to integrate their businesses and communication systems with ours to be compatible with what they've already got. And we're learning from carrier Ethernet users and providers. We're learning what their requirements are and the ways they use these services and the way that they like to do business with and interact with the OuterNet. So that's an iterative process as well. And once we're operational in 2025, our services will become MEF certified. And this should give our partners, and show to our partners that we've been successful in lifting the enterprise layer of connectivity off the surface of the Earth and moved it into space. So we're taking the enterprise layer of connectivity, we're taking it off the surface of the planet, we're putting it into space, and that's going to create the type of freedom that you talked about earlier on, where somebody that it could be in New York or it could be in Africa can now turn what was a confined area service into a global service, and that's a big game changer.
What are the major issues enterprises are facing today? Obviously, you interact with them a lot. They all want to go to cloud. So what are they facing when they talk about multi-cloud networking? How does that play into it?
Yeah, it's a great question. Most of our enterprise conversations or customer conversations or analyst conversations are turning to what's been going on in the cloud world. And what we've observed is our customers are getting savvy with where they want to place their workloads. So Pascal, if you go back to like the early days of clouds, it was just like, let's shift all our workloads into cloud. Let's just lift it. Let's go to a cloud. And during the COVID years, we could go to whichever cloud you wanted. But what's happened since then is the enterprises and the customers have gotten very savvy about which workload works best in which cloud. And some workloads are meant for a particular public cloud. Some are meant for on-prem at a colo where they want to run the workload themselves. Now, what we're seeing is the complexities of these environments is becoming a barrier, right? Standing in the way of the enterprises, maximizing the potential of this multi-cloud approach. Now, where does Equinix come in is we're that trusted partner where we're able to help the customers with simplifying some of the connectivity solutions, whether they run at Equinix or they're doing a cloud-to-cloud set of solutions. And as we go through some of these conversations, we've shared some of the learnings as well, and the capabilities that we described at the beginning, whether you want an OpEx model or you want a CapEx model or you want a virtualized set or you want to run your own services, we can offer those capabilities.
So you said managing these multi-clouds, this complexity of multi-clouds, hybrid and multi-cloud. So what's your thoughts on managing today's digital infrastructure? It seems extremely complex. There's a number of networking solutions, all kinds of clouds. It doesn't seem like it will evolve on its own. What can IT leaders do to get in front of this and make their jobs easier?
It's a great question. Yeah, multi-cloud's kind of reached that breaking point. We just talked a little bit about how we got here. CIOs are now dealing with the realities of complex digital infrastructure. I shared a little bit, they need a trusted partner to kind of help them. We talked a little bit about this evolution. We have been cloud and network neutral. We've been that way for 25 years. We built this ecosystem with low latency access to the clouds. So we're now able to give them a set of capabilities. Some of these are tied to, whether it's cost or complexity, whether it's security or control. And especially with, at some point, AI is going to come up. AI is driving another level of anxiety with CIOs because they're now having to connect and figure out how they're going to make all of this work. One of the big things that we're proponents of, Pascal, this is going to be near and dear to your heart, is standards-based integration. APIs first, standardizing, and we make it easy for customers and enterprises to be able to connect. We've got some new capabilities. Equinix announced a cloud router in late December. We've got some more advanced capabilities coming this year. All of this to really simplify this hybrid multi-cloud challenge that customers have. So
cloud router means you come to me and I will take you to any of your clouds, your private clouds, public clouds. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, that's exactly what you mean. So historically, what enterprises would do is when they wanted to connect to clouds, They would set up a physical presence at Equinix. They would either use cross connects that you mentioned or Equinix Fabric. They would bring their own physical routers, their own equipment. They would manage it. They would have to run all of this infrastructure. And let's assume you expand into a couple of different markets. You're going to have to rinse and repeat. What Cloud Router does, it's a fully virtualized cloud-like service. You can spin it up in under a minute. You can connect to cloud in under 45 seconds. Don't have to worry about HA. Don't have to worry about licensing. It's truly like the way the clouds have made it easy to consume. So this is virtual routing as a service.
So give us your insight on AI. You talked about that just briefly.
Yeah, AI comes up in every analyst, every customer conversation. And what we're seeing, Pascal, is we're seeing, enterprises are being a little cautious, evaluating the potential benefits of AI. And when I say cautious, they're being measured. They want to take a strategic approach about making sure that they don't put their valuable intellectual property at risk. So a lot of the enterprises that we talk to are starting to build their own AI models. They host models on private infrastructure. They use proprietary data sets to train them. And this is what we refer to as private AI. Earlier in the podcast, I talked a little bit about them being very cloud savvy. Now, for some of their AI needs, they're perfectly happy with a public model running in one of the clouds, or they're willing to use that. Private AI is very specific for them. It's a single tenant set of capabilities. They want to execute their AI strategy while maintaining full control and custody of their data. And this is true in a lot of the heavily regulated industries, primarily healthcare, financial services. The benefits are obvious, but they want to be very careful to avoid doing anything that might place their sensitive data at risk. So private AI, again, is a natural fit. Now, if you're in the unregulated set of industries, there's still some benefit from AI, but the value proposition isn't always as clear. Now, businesses need to consider trade-offs, both of data leakage and the cost and flexibility impact of doing AI in public infrastructure.
Everybody's talking about digital transformation. How does an Enxoo define digital transformation?
For me, it's really, about changing the way you operate and do business by leveraging technology. And for me, the order of that sentence is actually quite important because it's first and foremost about changing the way you operate. And the technology piece comes later. I think what we're seeing today in the industry is, digital natives, a little bit eating our cake. But if you take a look at them closely, the innovation they bring, it's not the digital technology, but rather a new operating model that is enabled by that technology. And whatever that is, right? Let's take cloud, SD-WAN or NAS. Not sure if you'd agree with that point. And I see that not only in the comms, but it's happening all over the place. Like I can give you a great example from my country, a company that disrupted traditional mailing services by shipping the mail not directly to your home, but to like a remote parcel locker that is located located in your neighborhood. And they are extremely successful, at least here. They've bidden national postal services, and of course there is a great piece of technology behind the scenes in what they are doing, but it all really starts from the change of paradigm on how you operate and eliminating some of the customer pains, which in the case of mail, was queuing up in the post office to pick up the mail and wait for literally hours. I still remember that, myself, right? So as an Enxoo, what we are seeing, those innovators that are coming to the market are setting a new standard, and some of the kind of incumbent players, let's call them like this, and they are having challenges with catching up, and not because they are, in my opinion, resistant to technology, or not because they lack software developers, but because their existing processes are built in such a way that they kind of rely on a human component, and that's where I believe like where the digital transformation should really start. But ultimately, my point of view is that service provider really need to understand where they want to go and what they want to do. Personally, if I reflect on some of the kind of most successful and personally rewarding projects that I've been participating in, I had this kind of three things in. They had these three things in common, which was first of all like a full support and alignment of the senior leadership, and I think it's kind of really relatively obvious. If you wanna do the digital transformation project, there needs to be a big support in the organization that we should go in a certain direction. Second thing was about kind of what I call a product ownership. So there was an operational and decisive product owner on the service provider side, somebody who had the vision and was able to set the priorities and accept the work. I recently came across one interesting blog post from Amazon, and they were coming up with this concept of so-called like single-threaded leaders. Which they define as somebody who is like designated and responsible for turning the strategy into real results, and also is empowered to do so. Because what they called in this blog post, the best way to undercut a strategic initiative is to make it someone's part-time job. Finally, like I feel for the successful digital transformation, you really need to operate in the environment that is open for experimentation, and that is like this type of environment is quite critical to be able to kind of tackle the unknown.
So just like the Amazon example, I talk about how it's facing the customers and they can buy and quote and order products, but really Amazon doesn't build any of those products. Well, most of them, they don't build them. And they rely on a huge set of partners to build and supply those products to their customers. And that takes an open ecosystem of common standard APIs and processes that's fully automated to enable that. So at MEF, we've enabled that for networks and connectivity and all kinds of services across the telecom ecosystem. And we call that the lifecycle service orchestration APIs, application programming interfaces. And we've been highly successful in that. A lot of adoption happening now across the whole global international ecosystem on a buy and sell model using these APIs, which allows the example of a provider that's supplying services to their customers to go to the ecosystem and says, give me a quote for connectivity across the planet, or to this location, or for compute, or for power and space, or all these various buys and sells that the customer wants. So what are the challenges you're seeing with these service providers in using these APIs to connect their business systems together and to enable that seamless workflow that is frictionless from the customer's point of view, that looks like their service provider they're buying from is like the Amazon idea, is supplying all the products, but yet they're not. They're relying on partners.
Yeah, sure. So I think the biggest challenge that I really see is that most of these service providers and their BSS and OSS systems that we've touched base on in the previous question, right? These systems are not necessarily ready for the LSO processes, and I specifically say here LSO processes because LSO is really about specifying the business processes between two service providers, and not just exposing APIs and connecting through the APIs. So to give you an example, like when we engage with some of our customers, we typically ask questions like, okay, guys, do you have an address database? How do you perform service availability check today? And you'd be surprised that for a lot of these questions, we get answers like, oh, we don't really have a concept of an address database, or address database is spread over, multiple databases, each in a different format. Or even like there is a guy on the 3rd floor that, get all those questions, looks up his Excel sheets and returns the answer. So that's really, the moment where both together with the customer, we just realize, oh, the project that we're supposed to do is not just about exposing the APIs. It really requires some changes downstream and some process adjustments in order to basically build that automation behind the scenes that will power these APIs and kind of automated flows across the ecosystem. So to me, that's ultimately the biggest thing, and a lot of service providers are at different stages of their kind of journey, but ultimately what I see going forward, and with each iteration and with each service provider on board, that I see we are slowly getting there towards a better, more connected and automated future. So there is still a lot of work to be done here, but yeah, it's definitely getting in the right direction.
Thanks for joining us for Executives at the Edge. Don't miss an episode. Subscribe today. Share online and review. Find all our episodes on your favorite podcast platform and at MEF.net.